My name is Gina and Dr, and I have with me today Dr. Rebecca Sarlea, and we're going to talk more about metabolic detox. This is kind of a continuation from our previous detox podcast. Mm-hmm. So when I think about metabolic detox, the way that I define that is looking at your metabolism and how well is your metabolism functioning. And one of the primary organs that I am concerned about when it comes to metabolic health is the liver. Mm-hmm. We do have other organs that are involved, such as the thyroid, which regulates metabolism as one of the things that it does. But your liver's job is to help regulate the amount of how your body is using calories. Mm-hmm. So you eat food, your pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin helps take the glucose from your bloodstream into your cells. But we don't put all of our glucose into our cells instantaneously. It takes time.
Right.
So we always have a certain amount of leftover calories that have to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So those leftover calories get stored in the liver. And the liver, I like to think about it as having a certain amount of storage closets. So your liver is able to hold on to a certain amount of calories. But if we have more calories than storage spaces, your liver has to become creative and think about, okay, well, now where am I going to put these calories? I convert some things into triglycerides. I do this. I've got these things saved, but I still have this abundance of calories coming in. And I don't have any place to put them. All my storage closets are full. So then your liver has to become creative. So it'll start to make new storage closets. Mm-hmm. And when our liver has to make new storage closets, the primary storage closet is fat, your fat cells. Okay? So your liver is going to start making additional fat cells in order to have more storage closets to stick in these extra calories. Mm-hmm. Okay? So over time, when we are not emptying the liver out of calories, we're not having periods of fasting, we're not having a need to go to our liver to get those extra calories in order to keep us functioning and emptying out those storage closets, over time we start getting what's called a fatty liver. Mm-hmm. And so as we get fat stranding or fatty liver, that starts to impede over time or potentially can affect the liver's ability to do its work. So we can get fatty liver from two ways. There's alcoholic fatty liver disease and there's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. When we have fat stranding in the liver for a period of time, that fat stranding can start to can cause cirrhosis. It can start to cause fibrosis and cirrhosis. And about 30% of people who have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease will develop something called non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, or NASH. So it goes from fatty liver to NASH. Then about 30% of people who have NASH will develop liver cancer. So you can go into liver failure or develop liver cancer even if you've never been an alcoholic or done anything intentionally to assault your liver.
Wow.
So as creatures, we were meant to go out and forage for our food, which meant that we had periods or times of abundance and times of fasting. So that's why we have this built-in system to take any additional calories that we don't eat and to store them, because our body is anticipating that we're going to have a period of time when we don't have food. Mm-hmm. So we were not created or evolutionarily evolved, however you want to look at it, to go to Kroger's to buy your groceries. Like, we were made to go out and have to get our food. Mm-hmm. So you need to have the energy to get your food. Mm-hmm. So when we think about how our metabolism is set up, it's set up to have periods of not having calories coming in so that we can empty out our storage closets and continue functioning. So when I think about metabolic detox, I think about keeping our body, our metabolism functioning the way that it was meant to by filling our storage closets, emptying our storage closets. and then keeping our cellular energy production or our metabolic rate at a healthy level. So that's where the thyroid comes in. So every single cell in the body has thyroid receptors, and it's the thyroid receptor's job to regulate cellular energy production or ATP energy production. So when we have periods of time where we are under stress, we are micronutrient deficient, we don't have enough cofactors, we become toxic, there's all these different things that can happen. All of a sudden what happens is our active thyroid hormone, free T3, that level starts to go down, and our neutral thyroid hormone, reverse T3, that level starts to go up. It kind of puts our cells a little bit in a state of hibernation, meaning we are conserving energy. It's a very intelligent, natural response. Again, it's sort of a defense mechanism to slow energy production on a cellular level if the organism is under stress, if there's some reason to think that we are not able to handle life right now, I guess, basically. Right. So I try to think of metaphors and put things in a simple way. But when we have decreased thyroid hormone function at the receptor site inside our cells, then we have a slowed metabolism. So when we think about metabolic detox or metabolic function, we have to think about optimizing thyroid production or thyroid hormone function at the cellular level. That kind of goes a little bit into avoiding those endocrine disruptors that we talked about in our last podcast. But it's a piece of our metabolic function when it comes to insulin sensitivity, glucose regulation, cholesterol regulation, and fat production. So that's how I think about the metabolism and metabolic, how we know somebody needs to do a metabolic detox. You go. What do you think?
I think that was a beautiful explanation about how we just metabolize things in our body. And I love that we just see it so differently, and we get to see it. We see it differently, and then we get to see it differently presented in patients. When I have a patient come in, all of those things are in the back of my mind. And then when I see them and I say, okay, you know what? I noticed for the past 4 visits, you've been very tired. What's going on? How's your energy production? You know what? I see on your intake form that you're hypothyroid, or that you're taking levothyroxine, you're taking some sort of thyroid regulating medication, or somebody is hypertensive, right? All of these things I'm starting to look at and say, okay, these are definitely things that people have already taken to try to fix their metabolic problems in their body. So things like fatigue, they're not digesting very well, they are not eliminating their bowel very well, they always feel like they have to take caffeine to kind of perk up their day, right? So when a patient comes in and they're just always tired, they have really bad inflammation in their gut, and we talk about these things, I say, you know what, it's definitely time, based on all of these factors. It sounds like your thyroid's not doing their job. It sounds like your liver's not evacuating its storage closets, right? Like your example. And let's talk about some things that we can do differently to fix your metabolic rate, right? Like, let's get your metabolism working better. Let's get your body moving better. And then some of my patients don't move. Sedentary lifestyle is also a really big part of that. If you're not foraging, right? If we don't have the need, all we do is get to our desk and sit for 8 hours, and then we go home. We're not even using some of our body, and we're not even moving things in our body really well. So everything's kind of just sits, right? It becomes stagnant. So in the past, our ancestors were foraging, they were out, they were being active, right? Now our sedentary lifestyles, I think, are definitely contributing to our lack of metabolic rate. So those are some things that I see in my patients.
I was just imagining, okay, so for future podcasts, we're going to be walking and talking instead of sitting on a couch, so that we're exemplifying movement. That'll be fun.
Just take the microphone with us.
Elevate the conversation, walking podcast. Soon to come.
TBD.
Yes. So that's great. So when you see somebody who you feel need support from a chiropractic perspective, let's talk about adjustments. Talk to me from a chiropractic standpoint about how you address metabolic concerns in a patient.
So I think, first of all, it's really important to always be working with your medical provider, someone like you, who can address those insufficiencies through medication, through supplements, and just getting an established baseline of what blood work is saying. Those are all very important things. And as chiropractors, we are not specifically, well, I specifically am not looking at those numbers. And that's why it's very important that we work hand in hand to address those things. But from a chiropractic standpoint, there's also a lot of important things that we can look for. What controls those organs? Those organs are all under the direct supervision and direct, kind of like a conductor is to a musician, to an orchestra, right? The brain and spinal cord is the conductor. And those organs like the liver, the kidney, the gallbladder, the intestines, all of our organs are the musicians, right? They have to play their part at a specific time. So when the symphony that is our body is working in unison, it just creates a beautiful melody, right? And that melody is life. Mm-hmm. So the way that we, from a chiropractic standpoint, look at the metabolic rate is we want to make sure that the brain, spinal cord connects perfectly to those organs through the nervous system, right? If we have misalignments in the body, it can actually interrupt nerve flow. And research has actually proven that the weight of a dime pressing on a nerve can decrease nerve conductivity by 50%.
Wow.
That means that, let's say you have a great liver, you have great metabolic rate, right? You're putting all the good foods in, you're putting all the great information in. But what if you have a misalignment pressing on the nerve from your brain that goes to your liver? Well, now you actually have a physical thing that's stopping your liver from working, and it's not getting good signals from the body. And those signals aren't going back to the brain, and the brain's not sending good signals back to the liver, right? Because that's how we adjust things in the liver. That's how the liver knows: store, don't store, make, don't make, take, right? It actually has to get signals from the brain, right? And from the body, but from a chiropractic standpoint, it does have to neurologically get signals. So the adjustment is super important for making sure that we don't have any pressure on nerves, right? We don't have any sort of misalignments along the spine that are going to physically impede that symphony that is our body, right? So we want the conductor and the musicians to always be in constant communication. We want those brain messages to go down and then for them to come up. So things that we look for with the liver is, if we see a lot of tension, each spinal nerve along our body is correlated to specific organ systems. It's not that T8 is liver or anything like that, but these areas, this bundle region goes to these type of organs. This bundle region goes to these type of organs. So we can look for correlations and symptoms. And if we know that we have a constant misalignment along the area of the spine that goes to the filtering organs, then we know that, hey, you know what? We could be putting all the right things in, but we're having a physical problem. So we want to reestablish that connection between the brain and the body. So that's some things that we're looking at from a chiropractic standpoint.
That's why I just love working with you so much, because, and this is where our care is so complementary to each other, because you may have decreased nerve function that's affecting the ability of different organs to do their job properly, but I want to look at the numbers.
Yep.
And I want to be able to measure what does that mean? If you have decreased blood flow to the liver, how is that affecting the liver? What does that mean? What are my measurable outcomes? How can I see where you're at for a baseline and then improve your function and optimize it? And so for me, it's really about my measurable outcomes that I can see on paper. And you're about outcomes where you can really see measurable outcomes in improvement in function and whether or not people are holding an adjustment. And do you do repeat thermography to see how people are going? Like if you...
Yeah, that's a really great question. Actually, yes, we do on our initial assessment, we do thermography, which is measuring the temperature of the back. It's through a device that just rolls up your back. And we actually repeat that every 12 visits when people are in active care. So after 12 visits, we will repeat that and then pull up the report side by side so we can really see physical changes. And then after 12 visits, we will do another rescan after anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And then once people graduate to more of a wellness care and their active symptoms are addressed and they are no longer symptomatic, we'll do a rescan every year.
Okay.
Or if somebody has a trauma or something, and we find it appropriate to do it a little bit sooner, or a new symptom pops up, then we'll do repeat thermography.
So for me, the foundation of metabolic detox is really understanding somebody's lifestyle, and this is where I think it's so important, and why I practice the way that I do. There are so many programs out there that people can purchase or get enrolled in some type of a predetermined program, and I just personally have such a hard time delivering care that way, because I truly see every patient as an individual. You are the culmination of your lifestyle, your genetics, your stressors, your environmental exposures, your choices. That's what defines where you're at right now. And there are an unlimited number of ways that we can support an individual's metabolic detox pathway, but it is 100% dependent on that person, where they're at now, what their goals are, what they're able to do right now, and how they're feeling. And so when I sit down and I do an assessment on a patient, I spend an hour at least just talking to them, understanding how did you become who you are right now? What has led you to me in this moment? And we even go back to childhood. And so if you were a kid who grew up, eating sodas or juice boxes and chips for school lunch every day,
or mac and cheese,
or your parents didn't cook, you started out at a very young age with an overwhelming amount of toxic burden that your body wasn't clearing out. You weren't symptomatic probably as a kid, although maybe you were, but
you survived.
But
you didn't thrive.
That's right. And so for me, this is why I felt like a metabolic detox needed its own podcast, because there are so many factors that are involved in regulating your metabolism and dysregulating your metabolism, and getting a baseline understanding of what do your numbers look like, and what are your lifestyle risk factors. That's kind of where we start, and then we really tailor a program to you. And again, sometimes we have to really ease into a metabolic detox. We can't go from 0 to 100, because you're going to feel terrible, and it would be setting somebody up for failure. Because if we go from a convenience-driven lifestyle to a lifestyle that requires effort and intention and planning, that's a huge shift in mindset. And then that becomes a high risk for failure, because it's too many changes at once. And so I think it's very important to let people know that we come from a place of non-judgment. We're both parents. We both are business owners. We both live in Georgia with, you can hear the cars. There's a lot of toxic burden here.
We're not in Montana.
No, exactly.
In the beautiful.
Surrounded by mountains. But understanding somebody's lifestyle and making a program to help that individual thrive is so important.
And to play off you is, I think that's really important, that we both sit down with people and really get to know them, so that way we know where they started, and tailoring their plan, like you said, for success. That includes making realistic expectations, right? Not unrealistic expectations. And I think that a lot of people, when they hear the word detox and metabolic, they're like, oh, that's it. I'm only going to eat lettuce the rest of my life. I'm going to be a rabbit, right? So, no, I mean, that's why it's so important to work with a trained medical professional like Gina, so she can tailor a plan, and me, we can tailor a plan together that is for you. right? If you grew up eating boxed mac and cheese, we're not expecting you to just eat spinach for the rest of your life. We're going to help you work into and change those lifestyle things, right? We're setting realistic goals for you through support, not setting you up for failure.
Right.
And I think that's really important. Part of the metabolic detox is just to address that. It's not going to be an overnight thing. Yes. And you know what? If you do want to be your best version, you are going to have to make some changes. But if you're not ready to do that, then we need to sit down and have a conversation about it.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, about why. What's
right?
driving that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is it a childhood thing, right? So that's why it's so important for us to sit down together and have that conversation. I think we just do a great job at that.
So we've talked a little bit about what we think about metabolic detox, what that means, and how we assess it. So now let's talk about just some foundational recommendations to make sure that your metabolic health is being optimized. So for people prior to coming in and having an assessment and meeting with both of us and getting their own numbers and scans done, what can they do just to optimize their own metabolic health?
Well, let's talk about what is, when we think about the word metabolic, what is happening? Things are moving, right? If things are moving in our body, how do we keep, the laws of physics say an object in motion can, stay in motion, right? So I think it's important movement. We can't talk about metabolic anything without movement. So get up and move, right? Our lives have become so sedentary. So things like walking every day. And you know what? If you don't have time to walk every day, do something. Get up and move. So movement is a part of our metabolic anything, right? Anything that's moving in our body, we have to physically get up and move our body. So with all of my patients, I really encourage them to walk. At least walk, right? Do something you enjoy. Go outside, garden, go get your mail. Go get your mail 6 times if that's what it takes, right? Just get up. I want you to encourage movement. Some people join things like hobbies like pickleball, right? Team sports, walk a dog, or play with your cat or something, right? So movement is probably one of the most important things that you need to talk about with fixing or addressing our metabolic function.
And so for me, when I think about it, yes, movement is important, and I agree with everything you just said, but I also think about what's coming into the body. So again, I'm really thinking about the liver and its processing of our energy. And a very important concept to understand is that carbohydrates are converted into fat. And so we really want to be mindful of the type of carbohydrates that we are consuming. So things like pasta, rice, bread, cookies, baked goods, sweetened beverages, those things are pure sugar or pure carbohydrates that will actually increase fat. And it increases your insulin, which decreases your insulin sensitivity, and those things increase your cholesterol. So carbohydrates are important as an energy source for right now. And carbohydrates go right into the brain and keep your brain functioning properly. Well, glucose does. So when we want to, I see people buy like these energy bars,
just pure
trail
sugar.
mix, granola bars made out of oats. Those things are, if they're not sugar laden, a quick carbohydrate load is for somebody who's like climbing a mountain. Mountain climbing. That Cliff Bars is the person on a cliff because they're literally burning a ton of calories. So they
climbing a mountain.
Yeah, I mean they're literally, that's what it was made for.
Correct.
Right? It's not made for you to go eat at your desk while you've been sitting all day.
Trail mix. You're supposed
Trail
to be
mix.
on the trail.
On the trail. Exactly. That's
hiking on the trail.
That's right.
Right.
So it's really important to understand that, and these things are just everywhere, inundated. It's packaged, it's easy, it's convenient. This is a convenience food. When you're talking about metabolic detox and you're thinking about insulin sensitivity and burning up the calories that you're taking in, you have to think, okay, well, how much am I moving and what kind of calories do I need for the type of movement that I'm engaged in on a regular basis? And so we have to eat. For me, I think, especially with the way that we live right now, working, sitting more at a desk, more protein and fat, and good sources of fat. So I am a proponent of a keto/paleo diet for certain people. But it has to be, when I think about keto, it's not eating a steak wrapped in bacon, cooked in butter. That's not my definition of a keto diet.
That's dirty keto.
Okay, yeah. So it's finding high quality fats using things like MCT oil. So for me, I had my bulletproof coffee this morning. So that's why my brain is functioning so well right now, because I had my bulletproof coffee with my MCT oil and my collagen, my multi-collagen powder. So it's a delicious way for me to start the day, get my energy going. MCT oil helps to go into the liver and actually improve your insulin regulation, right?
Yeah, I think you hit, something right on the, great, the way that you explained it. But the way I explain it to my patients is eat for your activity level.
Exactly.
Right? So if you're sitting at a desk, do you really need 3 full meals a day? No, maybe, if you're sitting at a desk all day, how much are you emptying your liver stores, right? Could we add in a little bit of intermittent fasting if you're someone who has a more sedentary lifestyle? And I think absolutely, right? Especially starting off the day with a bulletproof coffee that's full of great protein, full of great yummy fats, and something that is just going to hydrate us, it's going to nourish us, it's going to give us good fats for our brain. That's a great way to start the day, right? And if you're sitting at your desk all day, why not just eat for your activity level, right? And I think that's a good thing to kind of explain to patients, and I think they can visualize and understand that, oh man, I'm sitting all day, do I need 3 meals a day, right? And that Big Mac that you have from McDonald's, the lettuce really doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And if you are sitting at a desk all day, I really do encourage people to set a timer and get up like every hour and do, even if it's just 3 minutes of activity, get up at your desk, go walk up and down some stairs, do 50 jumping jacks, do 20 squats, raising your arms up over your head. That activity actually it increases your sense of personal power. That's actually one of an interviewing technique, that if you are nervous about going in for an interview, you should do like 10 arm raises over your head, because it makes you feel more powerful. Wow. So we all want to feel powerful, even if we've been sitting at a desk all day.
The American Heart Association actually has printed exercise sheets for office workers. They have some great resources. We can actually link it in the description below. And they recommend every 45 minutes. So every 45 minutes. And just some quick techniques if they say you're an office worker. Things like setting your printer further away from you, right? So you actually have to get up to go get a piece of paper from the printer. That's a great way to incorporate some movement in your workplace, right? Having a water bottle that you have to refill a couple times. I know that can be a little bit more difficult, but it could just be part of your daily movement habits is, you know what, I finished my water, I need to go get up and get another cup of water. And then that's also going to make you use the restroom, which is going to help you eliminate things faster. Good. So those are some, just 2 little strategies that I know office workers have implemented that have helped them incorporate movement into their daily life.
Yes. And I don't think we can talk about metabolic health and movement and intermittent fasting without also bringing in the adrenal health just a little bit. So we didn't really talk about cortisol and the damaging effects of cortisol. Cortisol contributes to insulin resistance. It contributes to thyroid dysregulation, hormone imbalance. And so if you are somebody who is chronically fatigued, which is one of your signs of needing metabolic health assessment as well, I don't recommend intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating or HIIT workouts in people with adrenal fatigue. So I think we might have talked about adrenal health in a previous podcast, but that's why, again, for me, I spend an hour talking with people, because HIIT training, increasing your workouts, one thing that I highly recommend for people is 10 to 15 minutes of movement in the day prior to breakfast. That's often how I start my day. If you can get up in the morning and just have 10 to 15 minutes of activity, you'll actually increase your metabolism and be burning more calories throughout the day. So then you're actually burning up your lunch more efficiently if you worked out 10 minutes before breakfast that morning. And then
it also helps with cortisol too. Getting up and moving in the morning can help regulate your cortisol waves during the day.
It can if you're not totally fatigued. So that's why I spend an hour with my patients, because things that I do for myself to keep my health regulated may not be what you can do right now, depending on where you're at in your health journey. So I just am so mindful to try not to talk about these topics in isolation from the rest of the body. And that's why I wanted to have a series of detox podcasts to talk about what this means, because again, detoxing the body is a very personal journey based on where you are now, how you got here, what your goals are, and what you are able to do to implement in your lifestyle. And then what kind of support do you have? Because detoxing isn't as simple as getting up and drinking celery juice every day.
No. It would be nice, though.
It would be nice.
So I think together we can just help patients support, create those realistic change habits, right? Ask the right questions, make the right plan for success.
Yes, 100%.
High five.
High five. So thank you everybody for joining us on our second detox podcast with Elevate the Conversation. And thanks to Dr. Rebecca for her insight and her incredible knowledge. We value and appreciate you.
But of course.
And you all have a great day.